Welcome into a special edition of Pig Trail Nation. I'm not on the team normally. I'm the digital guy, Jesse Cordova, joined by Evan Kamikow and senior analyst Mike Irwin. I don't know if you've heard by now, the University of Arkansas made a major announcement on Sunday, hiring Ryan Silverfield as the new head football coach at the University of Arkansas, getting mixed reviews online. For that perspective, I'm going to turn it over to Mike Irwin. Mike, your immediate reaction when you heard the news this morning?
Well, I was surprised. I wasn't surprised that it wasn't Golish, even though there was one report that he accepted the job about a week ago, and it became obvious after a day or two that wasn't entirely accurate. So really what I felt like as the days went by is that Arkansas was his backup. And if he got other opportunities, Golish was going to go maybe to Ole Miss, maybe to Auburn, maybe to Florida, because that wasn't settled until recently. So, one of those. But I really felt like that if that happened, then Kane Womack, who has ties to Arkansas, played here. His dad was a defensive coordinator here. And he really supposedly wanted the job, so much so that I watched Alabama and Auburn last night just to try to get a feel for the way he does things. I was real impressed. Alabama didn't do much offensively in that game and really put a lot of pressure on the defense. I thought they got tired because they were on the field too much. But still, they came up with big turnovers at the right time, got stops, and really got the stop that sort of ended the game with a turnover there at the end. So I was impressed with him, and I thought really he would be their choice. And then to wake up this morning and find out that it was Silverfield, real surprised. His name had always been mentioned, but I felt like and I think this is why a lot of the fans are upset, was because I felt like he was way down on the list of people that they wanted. I think they looked at him early, obviously because he beat Arkansas. And there's if you look at some of the things he's done, he's been to a bowl game every year there. He's had 2 10-win seasons. But this year they slacked off some, and I think they're tied for 5th right now, still going to a bowl game. I just think that a lot of the fans look at him and they see Sam Pittman in that he was an offensive line coach who was never a coordinator, who became a head coach. And as one guy said to me, imagine if that was reversed. Imagine if Pittman went to Memphis in 2000 and Silverfield went to Arkansas. Wouldn't it really be the same here? And so I think that may be why some are upset.
Yeah, I think that there's something to be said for that. I've seen a lot of that kind of commentary online from whether it be fans, analysts, whatever the case may be. I think that's a false equivalency. And, Evan, I kind of want to get your take on this, too.
Yeah.
We actually just published an article on our website. I'm probably going to attach this video to it, actually, where I broke down kind of what Ryan Silverfield has done as a coach. Now, I understand that this might not have been the first choice for most of the fans. There are some things that you can get excited about, though, when you hire Ryan Silverfield, especially when you consider, like, this is an outside perspective. I'm not an Arkansas lifelong. I've been here for a long time. Again, this place is home. But admittedly, I'm not a huge Arkansas fan. But the truth of the matter is, Arkansas was probably not going to get one of the A-list top-tier coaches in this cycle. It was always going to be a situation where they were going to have to go further down the list.
And I think the reality of it is there was really one A-tier candidate, and then you're looking at C and D-tier guys that are on the cycle right now. I would put Lane Kiffin at A, and I would put James Franklin at the top of the C list. Maybe you can make an argument that he should be on that B tier, but I just think with recency and what he's done at Penn State, not being able to win the big game, again, can you really put him up there on that A category? So I'd put him as the number 1 at C, but I think it's really interesting because Mike hit all of the right points, right, with Silverfield it felt like there were early rumblings of this guy when he beat Arkansas, and then you turn around and here you are, and okay, you didn't think you'd hire him. It was Golish earlier this week. It doesn't turn out to be Golish at all. He goes to Auburn. Lane Kiffin goes to LSU. Pete Golding stays at Ole Miss. There's a whole bunch of cycle. Golish goes to Auburn. Summerall goes to Florida. So it's been quite the day in general of all of this. But I said last week on our game day show that I thought there was probably about a 45% chance that it was going to be Silverfield because it just felt like that was how it was going to go because you're Arkansas. You're not going to be able to draw some of these top candidates. And quite frankly, again, we don't know how much they offered Golish and what happened if contract talks really ended up stalling out after the news leaked. Who knows what actually happened? But it felt like this whole time it was going to be Silverfield. And the downside of hiring someone like Silverfield, like Mike mentioned, is, it's basically Sam Pittman 2.0. Sure, he's got the better record. Sure, he has everything. And I guess the one thing you could say is if you look at him against some of these other coaching candidates, Alex Golesh, the big name we heard, Silverfield 3-0 against Golesh at UCF or USF, and now who's going to Auburn. He was 2-0 versus North Texas's Eric Morris, who's now heading to Oklahoma State. And Matt Campbell, a name that was getting tossed around a little bit, Silverfield's 1-0 against the guy. So, yes, there's a lot of positives that you can say, and culture, I think, is definitely more established there in Memphis than it has been here at Arkansas the last couple of years. I love what they do when they, break the cement pile down when they beat a team. So there's a lot of positives that you can, but it wasn't, and pardon me if I can't say this on TTV, it wasn't the sexy name Arkansas fans wanted to hear.
Right, and I think that's probably the biggest one. And to be clear, I think another part of this that I haven't seen talked about much, I'm really going to be curious to see what the contract numbers look like.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think that if this is a guy that you got kind of out of the bargain bin and you didn't have to pay him that much, like if he's on the lower end of head coaching salaries in the SEC, and then Arkansas can allocate more of that money toward revenue share, NIL, assistant coach pool, and other resources like that that coaches need to succeed, I think that there actually is a roadmap to this actually being potentially smart. Like in 2 years' time, we might be looking like, oh, okay, now it makes more sense. If it's not that, if they're paying Ryan Silverfield upper mid-tier SEC head coaching salary, I think that probably makes a difference. I mean, Mike, you and I have talked about this before. Arkansas, the revenue sharing thing has not been great for them. Like just from a financial standpoint, Arkansas is not necessarily the best equipped to deal with that at this particular moment. Is there a possibility in your mind as you kind of read the terrain that maybe that played a part in this, is that they said we have a budget we have to hit so that we can supplement appropriately, and Silverfield is the guy that best fits that mode and that budget?
I think what's more likely is that Yurachek couldn't get all the boosters together. We've heard about this all along. I want this guy. I'll give you money if you get this guy, but this other guy over here, no, I don't want him. I'm not giving money if you don't. And so you had to have some sort of consensus, and I still don't know if they do. We'll find out pretty quickly, because when he starts bringing people out of the portal, trying to bring them in, our recruiting people do a good enough job in this market, both online and television and whatever, Otis and all these other guys. They will know what Arkansas is offering. And if they lose a guy, they'll tell us, he got offered this much at this place. So we'll find out then if they're still getting outbid or if they've got good money to bring people in. But that's the first thing that Silverfield has to do, is he's got to come in and recruit. Now, Otis has already said, and this makes sense to me, that he is much more interested in in-state guys than Sam Pittman was. That was a major flaw with Pittman, in my opinion. He just didn't value in-state players. If he was going after a good wide receiver in Arkansas, a four-star, and the guy wasn't really showing a lot of interest, he'd go, okay, you can go where you want, and he'd go out of state and try to get a four-star. He didn't see the value in one as opposed to the other. He was just looking at the value of the athlete. What Otis seems to be indicating is that Silverfield doesn't think like that, that he will immediately go in and start trying to bring some of these guys that had not committed to Arkansas and are committed to other schools. Now, I'm talking about high school guys now, and bring them in. And then who knows what he's going to do in the portal, whether he'll try to bring one or two of his own players over, is he going to – I mean, he's going to have a bunch of guys jump in there. One's already done it as of now on Sunday. More will do it. So how does he talk them back down out of the portal if he wants to keep them? He's got to act fast. I think it's good that he's already here, because if he came in later in the week, that would be bad. So he's going to be really busy with that stuff. He's got one big thing going for him that I've already seen. He's already on Sunday been over at basketball practice with Cal. Cal is a Memphis guy. He likes Memphis. We saw that when they went over and played that. He had good times, and he has good memories of Memphis. So he's going to have Cal on his side, and that is huge. I'm telling you, it's huge, because Cal is popular enough that if he starts telling the fans, hey, this guy's good, they'll start listening a little bit.
It's kind of funny that you end up now here at Arkansas with two guys who have coached at Memphis before, to Mike's point, and you see kind of the back and forth. And look, I think it's going to be really interesting to see how, to Mike's point, can those players who he's going to have to bring over. Can they compete at the SEC level? Are they going to be better than the guys that Pittman was recruiting? Because we know there wasn't any real big names and big 4- and 5-star recruits who really came to Arkansas the last couple of years, and the talent, I think, was definitely lacking in the recruiting standpoint. Yeah, you had Travis Williams splash on some 4-star freshmen, but you never got to really see them develop. And I think that's something that Silverfield has to do, and that he will probably do a good job, is how is he going to develop these guys? And look, it's possible to go from that kind of, not the Power 4 to the Power 4 in 1 year and make the big jump. You've got Anthony Switzer out here tweeting, yeah, this is a Kurt Signetti-like hire. Now, do I think it is? No, let's back up on that, Switzer. I get it, but you've got to have excitement somewhere, and it feels like there's kind of twofold of like all of the former coaches and players who are in the industry are excited about Silverfield, and then you have all the fans who are
right.
really, really mad.
Yeah, because we've got some ex-Razorbacks, Bray Cook. I think there was 2 or 3 others that had coached with him. One of the players from Warren, I can't remember which one, but they were online saying, hey, I've worked with this guy. He's really good. He's attention to detail and all of that. Here's what I think. I think Razorback fans, the fans themselves, the general fan base, they're going to give him a shot because they know that he's here. They're not going to be rude to him. The internet people are not the same. And I'll try to make this point. I think a lot of people read the internet, and Facebook to me is a little bit different from X, but I think there are a lot of people on X or Twitter that read it that never post. I would say the vast majority don't post because they don't feel a need to get on there and tell people, I think this, I think they just want to find out stuff.
Yeah.
There's a hardcore group of maybe 10% of those people, 15%. They're trollers. They want to play a game of gotcha. They never forget anything. I think they take notes. And if somebody says something and it turns out to be not true, they'll turn around and come after them. They are very negative towards specific coaches or situations. They are going to continue to push back on this thing. And I'm not saying they don't have a right to do that. There was a student protest, and people were making fun of it.
Bring that up.
I'm gonna pause you right there. I want to take a short break in the middle of this here, but when we come back, I want to talk to you more about that. We mentioned the protest. You mentioned that kind of segment of the fan base. I do want to get into that part of this because that's obviously a massive part of the story today. Again, if somehow you have not already heard what we're talking about, University of Arkansas announcing on Sunday that Ryan Silverfield from Memphis will be the new head football coach at the university. Stick with us. We're going to take a break for about a minute and a half, 2 minutes. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back into our digital exclusive show today. We don't have a name for it. We're just reacting to the news. Ryan Silverfield named the new head football coach at the University of Arkansas. Evan Kamikow on my left, Mike Irwin on my right. You can see us on the screen. I'm Jesse Cordova, the digital content manager here at KNWA, Fox 24, and 479 First. Mike, before we took a break, you were talking about that kind of loud minority, that segment of the fan base that you see that they're very, very active on social media, on X, on Facebook. They kind of have their own reason or the way that they like to follow. Today, we saw probably between 20 and 30 fans actually go out in person and protest this hire outside of the athletics facilities at the University of Arkansas. How much of that do you think is kind of a snapshot of what this entire fan base feels about this hire versus that maybe 10% of the fan base that you're referring to before the break?
Well, there were people that made fun of that protest because there were so few people out there, and I noted that. But by the same token, I've never seen anything like that before. I've done this for 50 years. I've covered this program. I've never seen a protest over a new hire. And they were out there protesting. They weren't rude. They weren't holding horrible signs or anything. But what they were saying is, we don't like this hire. And they were as mad at the AD as anybody. It was cold out there. You can laugh at it being 20 people. If the weather had been good, there would have been more. You got to be pretty angry to go out there, in my opinion, even as a student, and stand out there and freeze for a while. I was out in that weather for about an hour and a half on Saturday, and I came home and stayed in the house the rest of the day. I don't like being out in cold weather. So I don't think it was insignificant that they were out there. Does it mean that there's a mass protest? And I mean, we've seen situations occasionally where schools have made hires and then backed out of it because there was such a pushback. I don't think that's happened here. But I still, he's here now. He's on the ground. He's got to know that this has happened. So how is that going to affect him? Now, the original thing that I was told was they were going to have this thing in Bud Walton Arena, this thing on Thursday where they call it a pep. It's almost like a pep rally. You have a press conference, and then right after that, he goes out. And I think with Cal, it was the other way around. I think they brought him out, and then we had a press conference. But you could still do it that way. Well, they've traditionally done basketball coaches at Bud Walton, but not football coaches. And personally, I felt like it was a bad idea because if you just let anybody come into that arena, then he's out there, and you do get maybe a bunch of students and a bunch of people coming in there mad. So, but what we find out now is that there's going to be the press conference. That's just media. And then after that, they're going to go over to the Walker Indoor, which is the football indoor facility, and it'll be just like it was with Sam Pittman. You got a bunch of people out there in folding chairs. There won't be more than 400 or 500 there at the most, and they're going to be committed fans. I think they're assuring themselves that we're not going to have a bunch of people in there mad, booing, protesting. So I think that's going to be orchestrated to, for effect. Yeah, we've got our coach. He's going to get up and say some things. Now, look, he still has to be compelling when he talks. The only thing I know about him now is the one time when he went on Twitter and said, hey, I'm your new coach and I'm on the way. That seemed fine. He looked good. He didn't have the beard anymore. He looked kind of good to me. I'm fair. I'm not going to prejudge the guy. But the bottom line is he's got to win. And this fan base is so used to this process now because there have been so many coaches that have come in here that I don't think they're going to buy a lot of PR stuff. There'll be PR stuff done in the winter, in the spring, in the summer, in fall camp, all that stuff. But I don't think they're going to form an opinion on this guy until they start playing games. And guess what? Now you got a 9-team SEC schedule. Now you've only got 3 non-conference games, and one of them has to be with a Power 4. Right. So where are your wins going to come from? This could be very, very difficult that first year.
It might be a, same thing that we didn't think was going to happen this year, but ultimately that's the result. And I think you make a great point, Mike, when it comes to, you want his message to be clear. You want him to be a better communicator than I think Sam Pittman was. And I think that was really one of the downfalls where I think Pittman had a disconnect with a lot of the fan bases. So Silverfield, can he connect with the young students? Can he connect with the new generation of college kids that maybe Sam Pittman wasn't necessarily able to when it comes to the fan base? I'm not talking about the players. I think any coach can get their guys and can get their players. But I think what's going to be interesting is when it comes to that schedule and being able to play. I mean, look, there was a reason Silverfield was on his way out. The reason why people were out there today shivering in the cold, I was out there at about 11:45 until it really started again. 25, 30 people were there. It was a pretty, considerable protest. I wouldn't call it anything groundbreaking or earth-shattering. But again, towards the end with Silverfield, there are Memphis people tweeting that, hey, they're happy he's gone. They wanted a change. It was getting stale towards the end, and this is why. 3-12 against teams above 500 on the road, 12-20 against teams above 500, 0 AAC title game appearances in 6 years. He was 4-4 with losses to UAB, East Carolina, Navy, and Tulane this year in AAC play. Look, at the end of the day, Memphis wanted a change, and Arkansas gave it to them. So he's got to win over the fan base and show people that, hey, these numbers that I just read don't really mean much. Like, they've got to, again, but it's tough when you hear those numbers and it's like, well, you're only going to play in now the best conference in college football.
Yeah. I go back to Musselman. And what Musselman did when he got here, which was genius to me, is he used social media. He was on there all the time. And that's even if you're a coach that doesn't do that well, you need somebody that is familiar with it that can put you on there.
Yeah.
Never miss any opportunity. When you go do something, they're right there with the video and they're showing how you're interacting with students on campus. Musselman will go around, he'd go to fraternities and play pickup basketball with them. So, I think Silverfield needs to go all over the campus, meet the students, win the students over first, because I still think most fans out there understand what college athletics is for. At the very core, it's for the students. This is why so many people are upset now with the Board of Trustees, with the chancellor, because they feel like these people don't understand. there's all this talk about, hey, we got board members that aren't that much into athletics. I had an argument with a guy the other day about that. I said, if you are on the board of trustees at the University of Arkansas or any other school like that, and you start trying to come across and say athletics is not that important, it puts students in your school. Mm-hmm. It affects the economy of the people where your university is. You better figure that out, and you better have an AD, the right guy that can get the job done, and you better be on top of all this.
Real quick before we wrap up, I want to get your thought, because you kind of touched on it there. You mentioned kind of what Musselman did with social media and being very, very visible and active on campus. We've talked about it ad nauseum. This was seemingly not a very popular hire among the fan base. Again, whether that is because they had different expectation than frankly, maybe they should have, or maybe that was because they didn't feel like the process was handled very well. Maybe a lot of fans, unless it was like Lane Kiffin, they're just so fed up with Hunter Yurachek that it didn't really matter what was going to happen today. We don't know that. But what do you think has to happen between now and, say, spring ball for this fan base to maybe cool off a little bit and actually give Coach Silverfield the room he needs to operate? Because the truth of the matter is, building a program takes time. It takes patience. And I understand that not every fan wants to hear this. Sometimes it has to get worse before it can get better. Now, I don't think it will get worse than 2-10, but the general rule is supposed to be that when you're fixing something, sometimes it gets worse before it gets better. So, for one thing, he can't win until August. There's nothing he can do on that front for the next 9 months. So what can he do to try to bring down the temperature and give himself the room to operate with this fan base?
I think it starts at laying the foundation. And I think the foundation in today's college football isn't freshmen. It's the transfer portal class. He's got to bring a really good class over. Got to find a quarterback who can be more consistent than Taylon Green was this past year. Find somebody who can fill that void. And hey, maybe he's already on campus. KJ Jackson was extremely impressive yesterday against Missouri. He looked really good. I was shocked he wasn't in the fourth quarter trying to win the game. I get it was senior day, whatever. I won't go on that tangent. That's for PTN Extra this week. Mike and I are going to break that down. A little self-plug right there. But it starts with the transfer portal class. Can he get a top 30 class into Arkansas to get these fans on board? Because you don't build anymore with freshmen, you build in the portal. And if he does that, that steps in the right direction. I don't know, maybe buying everyone around 8 beers at Yeehog doesn't hurt too.
Mike, what do you think?
I think he needs to go around the whole area, every sort of function that he can put himself in. I think he needs to bring some players with him. I think they need the players that talk the best, that sell the program. And you got to go out and be around people and impress them. Hey, yeah, I was impressed with that guy. He sounds like he knows what he's doing. Boy, those two players, they were really smart. That's how you do this. You go around, and it is the opposite of what you're getting from your AD, who's never around anywhere. I had this guy tell me a story the other day. He said, I was sitting at a table by myself where I can't remember where he was, but he said, Hunter walked up. I recognized him immediately. He said he put his foot up on a chair next to me to tie his shoes. I'm standing right next to him, and he never acknowledged that I was there. That's rude. People around here consider that rude. Hey, I'm Hunter Yurachek. What's your name? Okay, well, glad to meet you, blah, blah, blah. Yurachek's not doing that, but your head football coach now has to start doing that. He's got to get his players doing that. These days they're getting NIL money anyway for advertising various things. Go out there and have public appearances at a barbecue place or a car dealership or whatever, and just be around the public as much as possible.
And I'd like to see Remy Cofield a little bit too, and I'd like them to sit there and answer questions of why the season went wrong and what's going to be different this time around. We sat down with Cofield a while ago, who was supposed to be Pittman's go-to guy when it comes to players in the portal, and we basically got 30 minutes of nothing. So I'd like to hear different answers. I'd like to see something different, but quite frankly, I think Mike's right. He's got to go out. You've got to get involved in the community, whether that's showing up at a third-grade football game or that it's going to high schools, whatever, going around in fraternities like Mustard. Get your face out there, get known, and get accustomed to this community. It's really great Northwest Arkansas, and you're not going to do that unless you embrace it fully.
All right, so a couple things to clean up before we wrap this thing up. Number one, Evan, you owe me $20 because I told you would find a way to put Signetti into this conversation, and you did that earlier.
That's fair.
Number two, we talked a lot about the facts and figures. Obviously, Memphis does not play SEC ball. They just don't. But there are some numbers that I looked up before this that I thought were really interesting. They don't play against Power 4 all the time, but since Silverfield took over at Memphis, he is 4-1 against Power 4 teams, including, as we all know, it went over Arkansas just this year. One thing that really jumped out to me when I looked it up, or two things. Number one, at home in Memphis is 31-9 under Silverfield. Again, we can talk about the level of competition.
Yeah.
The truth of the matter is, Memphis doesn't recruit at the level that Arkansas does right now either. So that's there's probably a little bit of correlation. 31-9 at home. In that same time frame, Arkansas 17-19 at home.
Well, and
how often, real quick, how often do we talk and just pound our heads into the wall talking about one-score games?
Yeah.
With the University of Arkansas.
Well, that's one of the things they'll be looking at. Does this continue to happen? Also, turnovers, mistakes, penalties, ways that you get yourself beat. Does he clean a lot of that stuff up? But look, he's now going to have to play Memphis.
Of course.
What does that happen? They're coming here.
Mm-hmm.
What if they beat him? Then what happens? You know what I'm saying? And they will be motivated to beat Arkansas with him here. So this thing works both ways. It's a two-way street. I have always felt like that Arkansas somehow ends up with a target on his chest for whatever reason, and it's just harder. It's just more difficult. People, especially when in these non-conference games that you're having to play now, where you're having to play Power 4 teams, at least one every year. And then all these SEC games, I don't know, the schedule switches next year. Maybe there's somebody over there they can beat. I don't know. But, I mean, how long is this losing streak to SEC? How long is this losing streak going to continue? Supposedly the longest one in school history now. Mm-hmm. Better snap that right off the bat. It would help to win your first game of the year, to break that.
Absolutely. And again, so the where I was going with the one-score game, just as we wrap things up, again, Arkansas since 2020, 7-23 in games decided by 8 points or less. Coach Silverfield at Memphis in that same time frame, 19-15. That also means that of the 25 total losses that Ryan Silverfield has at Memphis, 60% of them by one possession or less. Yeah. So what we've seen, just you talk about the little things, you talk about keeping yourself in the games, limiting turnovers, limiting mistakes, penalties, things like that. He has shown that even when he doesn't win, his team is usually in the game, and that is something that, again, Arkansas fans want to get over that hump. 7-23, probably an aberration. But there are reasons, I think, for optimism when you pull back the cover a little bit and look at the resume that Ryan Silverfield brings. Mike Irwin, senior analyst, Big Trail Nation. Evan Kamikow, man about town. Indianapolis, Indiana, and Kurt Signetti, Homer. I'm Jesse Cordova. I'm the digital content manager here at KNWA Fox 24 and 479 First. Thank you for joining us. Plenty more content about this coming in the coming days. Make sure you stay tuned online and on air. Thank you very much.